and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time tuning in, hi, welcome, thank you. My name is Ana Fernandez, and I like to make videos to make complex issues and legal situations easier to understand, at least for either if you're a layperson and wants to learn more about this area, awesome, or you're an attorney starting out, or you're an attorney not starting out and just need more information in a way that's easier to understand. So today we're actually going to talk about the new Alimony Reform 2023 just came in effect as of July 1st. It actually was signed, I believe it was signed on June 30th, like at close of business day. So it took effect July of this month, and there's a lot of changes that are going to affect how cases are going to be resolved in Florida. Primarily, the big one is they pretty much did away with permanent alimony. But of course, before we get into that, let's define it. What is alimony? So alimony is support of a spouse when there's a need, meaning the spouse actually needs it. Doesn't mean that, let's say I work for a living and my spouse is extremely wealthy, we file for divorce. Well, because he's wealthier, I want him to start paying for my stuff. That's not the way it works. There has to be an actual need, and then there has to be an ability by the other person to be able to afford to pay alimony. So back in the day, or back as of last month, there was a provision in an alimony, a type of alimony called permanent alimony. Now this was for people who were married long term. So another thing about the statute is now it actually defines what short term, medium term, and long-term marriages are. So for purposes of this discussion, let's say a long-term marriage was anything, back then it was 17 years, now it's defined as 20 years. So anything that's longer now than 20 years is considered long-term. But let's say for purposes of this example, when permanent alimony was in place, you can go to court if you're married for, let's say you're married for 30 years, you could go to court and there's a need and there's an ability. Typical situation, mom was a stay-at-home mom. She took care of the house, she took care of the children aged out, but her life was dedicated into making a home. Dad, he went out, he worked, he made money, continued to make money. Let's say he became very successful, and now that they're divorcing, there's certain skills that may not have been developed for mom. Maybe she was a stay-at-home mom, maybe she was working, or she wasn't working, but she didn't get a level of education, she didn't get experience in the job field. So now she has a need because she's never worked a day in her life. And let's say dad has the ability to pay. Well, it's a long-term marriage. Back in the day, as of last month, you may have been able to get permanent alimony. You still need to finding the need and the ability, but the alimony could have been awarded permanently, meaning for the rest of her life. Of course, there are exceptions, there's ways to modify it, but for purposes of this video, basic situation back as a month ago, that's how it used to be with long-term marriages. Now there's no longer permanent alimony, meaning that you cannot get divorced and request a court to have your spouse support you for the rest of your life. Even if you were married 40 years, it doesn't matter. Now the maximum that you can get is 75% of the duration of the marriage. So let's say you were married for 20 years. Now, I'm not going to do the math because I don't have my calculator nearby, but instead of getting for the rest of your life, you're going to get a fraction of it. You're going to get 75% of 20 years. I hope I have the math done and I could put it in the notes. But yeah, so bottom line, this one's a biggie. No more permanent alimony. Another thing, if your case, or these are a lot of questions that I've been getting, if your case was already resolved and before July 1st, meaning that you have a court order or you entered into an agreement and you're just kind of like waiting for the finalization of your divorce, it's not going to apply retroactively. So example, let's say same situation, married for 40 years, stay-at-home mom, working dad gets into a divorce. Divorce is filed and completed before July 1st. That means that if you did request permanent alimony and you were awarded permanent alimony, it's not going to affect you. However, if your case has not been decided, then you can no longer ask for permanent alimony. If your case is pending and was filed before July 1st, it's still not going to be, you're not going to be awarded permanent alimony, because that is that's no longer in effect. So the max you can ask for, assuming that you qualify, that there's a need and an ability, would be 75% of the duration of the marriage. There's more changes, and I'll break the videos down because it is a lot to digest, but the permanent alimony one is the big one, because it's gonna affect a lot of cases. Because let's say you were just married for 20 years, and now you're in your 50s. It may be difficult to, you were relying on being supported for your whole life, and now you're divorcing, and it might be difficult for you to go back into the workforce if you never were in the workforce, or to get an education. So, but on the good side, if you think about it, if you're divorcing and you're 50, instead of having to pay for the rest, if you're the paying spouse, instead of having to pay someone who's still relatively young, they're in their 50s, instead of having to support them for the rest of their life, you no longer have to do that. The maximum that you can get is 25% of the amount of time that you were married. And no, common law marriage is not, it doesn't matter if you were cohabitating before you were married, those years don't count. It's the actual duration of the marriage. It starts counting from the date that you registered your marriage until the date that a dissolution of marriage petition was filed. So we'll break these videos down a little bit more. If you have any questions, please send them my way. I love to create content to help better serve you in the community. So let us know how we're doing, and I'll see you in the next video.